Today's talk is going to be about assessing body composition, and many of you have already learned different ways of assessing body composition, but in this class you're really going to hone in on those skill sets so that when you are working with clients you'll feel comfortable doing so. Additionally, I kind of want you to know the background of how we actually get the numbers that we get, say when we do skin folds. Well, how are we getting that information? And so that's really the purpose of today's lecture. So let's go ahead and start off with what you think healthy body fat percentage is or should be for women and men. So right now, without looking at anything, I just want you to think through, what would you think the answer is? So if your neighbor asked you, hey, what's a normal amount of body fat percentage for me? What would you say? Now, knowing that number in your head, does it actually kind of go along with the guidelines? So for women, we tend to think healthy ranges are going to be any numbers in the 20s, with anything greater than 35% being obese. And for men, a healthy range is going to be numbers in the teens, with anything greater than 22% being obese. And now we can look at actual specific numbers here. And there's a lot to look at in this graph, so I want you to just kind of take it all in. These are different levels of body fat percentage for adults, children, and physically active adults. Okay, and so you can see that there's different columns here for females versus males, and then you also have NR, which stands for not recommended, which is essentially that's too low. And then you have low, mid, high, and then what's classified as obese. Okay, so something I want to highlight here is that this mid range is kind of what we call that healthy range. So if you think about what we just showed you right in that previous slide, for females we tend to want it to be in the teens, okay, and for females we want it to be in the 20s, and then for males we want it to be in the teens. Two things I want to point out here is that there's kind of two parts of this table. You can see the top part, which is for recommended percent body fat for levels for adults and children. And then you have this bottom part, which is that recommended amount of body fat for physically active adults. And what you can see is that at the same age, so males who are 18 to 34, if there's just kind of your regular adult children, what we recommend is about 13%, right? But if you look at physically active males between the ages of 18 and 34, it's actually 10%. And so there's kind of a lower recommended level for those who are physically active, because we know that physical activity is going to have an influence on their body fat percentage. Okay, so just kind of looking at the norms here and understanding them is important. So the next question is, why do we even measure body composition? Well, what's the purpose of it? And I think sometimes we get so used to our rigid ways of, when you're a personal trainer, you do these assessments, and body composition is one of them. But I think it's important to take a step back and think through what the true purpose is. And not every single one of your clients needs to have body composition as one of their assessments, okay? And you're gonna have to figure out psychologically, mentally, physically, where are they, what's their status, and is it going to benefit them, and is it an assessment you need to look at if their goals are being met? Okay, so here are some kind of standard reasons why we think body composition is a good thing to use. First of all, it can help us decide and classify if someone is at a disease risk, right? So we know that obesity is now a disease, okay? So if someone has a body composition that puts them in that category, then right away we know they have a disease, okay? We also know that there are many other comorbidities that are associated with obesity, including diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, dyslipidemia, right? So there's many other comorbidities that go along with obesity. Measuring body composition can also help people estimate healthy and competitive body weights. So it's a good standard of reference for us, right, to know if our clients are in that healthy range, but it's also a good standard of reference for people who are trying to compete at kind of elite levels. So this is the client that I think of. I tend to think of bodybuilders. I tend to think of people who are really trying to be lean, even some power lifters. And so knowing what weights they need to be at is important, but not only that, knowing what their composition is important. Aid in nutrition and exercise prescription So when you are providing an exercise prescription, knowing what your client's body composition is important. And you have to think about why. What does body composition tell you? It tells you what is their lean mass versus their fat-free mass. So if you know someone who's coming in who, by looking at them, is very thin, but their lean mass is very low and their fat mass is actually pretty high, then you're going to want to prescribe an exercise prescription that includes a lot of weightlifting so that you can build their lean mass, right? Rather than cardio, which doesn't build lean mass as much. Okay. It can help monitor growth of children and adolescents because really using height and weight sometimes can be challenging at an age when they are growing like that because you don't really know what is made up of that height and weight, okay? So using body composition is helpful with growth and also can help track disease state. So, and that goes along with aging, right? So we know that as older adults age, they tend to see a drop in that lean mass, and as a result, there's a lot of things that happen, include, risk of injury. They tend to have a lower BMD, and so tracking body composition can certainly help with aging in people with various disease states. Okay, so we're going to pause now, and your next lecture is going to be on body composition models.